Hi, welcome to another video. I'm going to take us around the town of Deal in Kent. Some people have given it kind of a bad rep. It's not a bad place. And if you like history, if you like old architecture, that kind of stuff, then this is the place to come. So as we take a walk around, there'll be plenty of these little marker signs, historic Deal, telling us kind of the vicinity of where we are, what we're doing. We've got the Deal Castle behind me. Deal's got 3 castles. In fact, it's got 2 castles and 1. It's got a pier. It's got Smugglers Alley. Plenty of blue plaques. So I'm hopefully just going to stroll around and we'll take in as much as we can. And it'll actually be kind of like a walk of discovery, if you like. So let's start. We'll just go back up into the castle so that I can show you the aspect out to sea, because we've got the Goodwin Sands just along there. So I need to talk about that before we do anything else. So let's get in the castle. I'm not going to do a tour of the castle because I've done that in a previous video, which I'll put a link up here. Is it? No, that way. Link up here. This video. But I thought it would be interesting just to show you the aspect from the castle. It's rather fantastic castle, actually. Oh, windy, blowy. Not built in the way that you would imagine castles built, because we always think of the medieval times, you know, Edward II through Edward IV, Richard III, all that kind of stuff. But actually, this was built by Henry VIII, which, you know, watch my other video, you'll see it. And it's built in the shape of a Tudor rose. Overview now. But the reason I wanted to show you this aspect is because we get a clear view of what the Downs were. It actually does say on this poster here, the Downs, an area of sea between Deal and Goodwin Sands, is sheltered from bad weather during storms. And there's a picture of it showing the castle and the Downs. So what were the Downs? So out there are the Goodwin Sands. And if you can imagine the sea level, if you're going out onto the coast, you can see the different colours of the hues and the blue. Blue obviously indicating how deep it is, right? So the closer you come to the shore, it's lighter colour. The Goodwin Sands, the sea level rises. So out there, I think I'll have to do an overview with a nautical map so that you can get the gist of it. But you've got the Goodwin Sands, which are notorious for shipwrecks. So if you've got the ships coming in, and they're not aware of the Goodwin Sands, then they become stranded and sometimes they get wrecked, especially in stormy weather. But the Downs themselves was this whole area. You can imagine the castle not having all these properties all around it. But Deal, being the seafaring naval town that it was, didn't actually have a proper port. So what they used to do was anchor up the boats along the Downs, that stretch of water between the Deal coastline and the Goodwin Sands, called the Downs. Yeah, fascinating stuff. So actually, even when the smugglers, you know, were rife in this area, what would happen is that they would levy a toll to the boats for a safe passage through the Downs. And those that didn't pay, apparently the smugglers would stand on the shore and, you know, chuckle to themselves. I think smugglers, I think pirates, you know. Arr, me hearties. And I did see a skull and crossbones down there. I'll show it to you when we get past. We had the smugglers looting the boats that got stranded. So taking the goods off them and using it as contraband. Fascinating stuff. Deal. Vagabonds and waifs, strays. So yeah, I'm not going to show you around Deal Castle. Thankfully, because I'm a member of the English Heritage, I could just come in for nothing and just show you this amazing structure. I will encourage you to watch that other video if you're interested in the castle itself. Right, in the meantime, let's head back into the town. Right, back out. We'll head down here towards the pier, but we'll do the pier last. We've got all these little fishing boats and everything. I'm not sure how many of these still run. I mean, look at this. This is just ancient. Is it still in use? I can smell the oil. Anyway, I was telling you about the skull and crossbones. When you're doing a video like this, you always do a little bit of research, and as much as I want to just verbatim talk about everything that I've picked up, I think it'd actually be more fun just to walk through the alleyways, the high street, just see what we can see. Because it looks lovely with all these little back alleys, Georgian buildings, terraces, and of course the pier, which is always worth a visit. So as I cross the busy road, we've got the Time Ball Tower. Look at this. Fascinating. I'm not sure if... Oh, it's closed. I can't take you in. Little cannon to protect them. Boom. So, look, we've got dates on here. 1796 to 1814, it was a shutter telegraph. 1821 to 31, semaphore. 1855 to 1927, Time Ball. And what is the Time Ball Tower, you ask? Long before GPS, and you had all the boats out there on the downs, which, as I explained before, was the mooring area for all the boats. They could synchronise their chronometers, is that the word? Whether they had timepieces on these old boats. The time was set by the time ball. Now, let's have a look here. So technically, at 1 p.m, the time ball was raised at about, well, where does it say? There is a little bit here. 14-foot mast was erected on top of the old signalling station with an iron ball which ran up and down its length. At 12:55 each day, the ball was raised halfway to warn ships to be ready to correct their chronometers. At 12:58, it was raised to the top of the shaft, and exactly one, it was dropped automatically by an electric current from Greenwich. Let's go back a bit so you can see the tower. Lovely bit of nautical history there, right? So Deal was and has a very vast naval nautical history. And it used to have a cinema in the Regency. But this is all shut down. Very Art Deco, isn't it? I saw something around the corner here. This cinema has been stolen. Better report it to the police then, hadn't we? If I go that way, I'm going to go down here because then we can start our little walk up the high street. Because the high street's quite interesting, but we've got lots of little alleyways like this and pubs. I've seen other YouTube vloggers and they conclude their videos with a pint, that kind of stuff. Seeking out the best public house for, just to finish off the video. However, I'm a non-drinker, so that would be a bit futile for me. I might finish the video with some fish and chips on the pier though. I am looking for, what have we got here? South Street and Carter House. South Street has for centuries been connected with the town's transport and even today is home for the bus station. So yeah, South Street. Look at the old buildings, amazing. We'll walk up the high street and then just take in the kind of vibe of what Deal High Street's like. So as I said, a lot of people have kind of disrespected it. But if you think about the history of the place, smuggling, and, kind of like the juxtaposition between the 1800s Naval and the Smugglers. I think Charles Dickens wrote something, put it on the screen here, but words to the effect it was, you know, very low life. So the high street wanders all the way up. You'll see some old buildings, but also a touch of the new. It is supposed to have a real mixture of classy eateries, little cafes, pop-up cafe and kitchen there. You don't get many big chain stores. I saw Superdrug down there. Unlike Ashford, which is just filled with estate agents and charity shops, you actually do get a lovely selection of, let's cross here quickly while the lights are green. Yeah, you do get a real mixture of independent stores, very arty, Goodwin pub. Yeah, very arty, independent. Let's see what we can find up here. And you'll get a lot of that, little alleyways. Also, there are a lot of famous people associated with Deal. J.B. Priestley, the author. Charles Hawtrey, the actor. Do you remember him from Carry On? Hal Bennett. Was he Shelley in the 70s and 80s? Lord Horatio Nelson. There's a connection with him, if we can get into the church. So, there is a blue plaque heritage route through Deal, so you can find all the little blue plaques linking to the famous people. I'm looking for... Let's go and have a look at the church quickly. It is very interesting that the old architecture is still intact, you know, they haven't pulled it all down just to make modern houses or modern shops. And so actually, you've got the old post office here and the Astor? Yeah, the Astor Theatre. So you can actually watch live shows. I saw Beverly Craven there. She was great. She signed a CD for me. Dearest Tudor or something. I'll put it on the screen here. Blue plaques. Old buildings. A church connected to Lord Horatio Nelson. I don't know if the church is open, but let's have a look. This is St. George's Parish Church. It is said that Horatio Nelson and Lady Hamilton worshipped here. So if you think about the naval connection, and I know he probably sailed from Portsmouth or Southampton, because that's where HMS Victory is. But I'm wondering if he was based here or something. Shall we see if it's open? It's always good to see an old church. And it's closed. Can you see inside? I performed in here. There's a video on my other channel called The Witness. When I attended the church, we performed to about 30,000 people around Kent over a space of 6 months, and we did a small private showing of The Witness here. I mean, I'm talking an hour and a half long production, so it was full on. And I played Peter, the Apostle. Listen to me, this is for you. And we performed it in here. Anyway, I was going to take you in, but it looks like it's locked.
Listen to me, this is for you. I've come to tell you a story
Even the local garage, look, looks like something straight out the 50s and 60s. You want a ton-up boy to come out on his motorcycle, or an old Ford Zephyr or something. Look at those old houses, they're wonderful. Right, just up here is a square that I want to have a look at, which has got some of the oldest architecture of Deal, and it leads on to Middle Street. And Middle Street is quite interesting. I think there's a plaque, so we'll have a look at that rather than me try and give you some spiel. We'll just read that first. I have some ideas of what I want to talk about. Anyway, this square into Alfred Square. Not Albert Square, because that's in EastEnders. But look at these old buildings. Oh, there's a breeze coming in off the sea. Hope you can hear me. There's some renovation going on, so that kind of detracts from it. But you can imagine this having market stalls all through the ages. Obviously not a red telephone box. But yeah, very elegant looking properties. I like that one. That looks very much like a Georgian house. Well, you would think so, because the door in the middle and the windows on either side, but actually it's two houses. Hello, they've got cuddly toys in the window. Very nice. The Prince Albert. 'Tis a pub, you know. Ales, stout and porter. Now, what on earth is porter? Drop me a comment, let me know. Because as I said, I'm not a drinker. So straight up there is the coast. And we will head up there shortly. But kind of from this, that's Sandown Road. This is Middle Street. Now there's something important about Middle Street. Alfred Square and Middle Street. The street is not always so beautiful, crossed by a maze of little streets and courts, secret passageways and hideaways. It became the centre of Deal's extensive smuggling activities. Here we go. Crowded with pubs, sailors, smugglers, press gangs and women of the night. It had a terrible reputation and murders and assaults were common. Crikey, I can see why, you know, it has or did have a bad reputation. Now the thing with Middle Street, in 1968, it was deemed a conservation area, and in fact became the first conservation area in Kent. What does that mean? Well, the properties, especially all these little side alleys, have to remain the way that they were originally created and designed. So that means if you are an owner or a tenant, Fanny's dilemma, oh dear, and you need to do some renovation, restoration, you have to seek approval from the council, not necessarily meaning this is a, you know, listed street, but it is a conservation area. So if you want something done, like you need a new sash window, the materials have to be sourced and produced the way they were originally produced. So you can see that's not double glazed. That's just single glazing. Fascinating. Pretty looking buildings. Exchange Street. This is the kind of thing I like doing when I'm around Deal. Rather than just go up the high street or, you know, go along the seafront, is to meander through all these little alleyways, looking at all these old buildings. Birdcage Cottage. How tiny is that, eh? Primrose Cottage. Look at this with its curved wall. Old buildings going down. I like that door. Look at that. Smugglers, murderers, women of the night. Can you imagine that these technically still the original designs and builds from their previous generation? I haven't found any blue plaques yet, but I thought there would be one just along here because I thought Charles Hawtrey lived here. Now, Charles Hawtrey, from the Carry On, you know, with the glasses, I think I showed you a picture of him before, came here in 1968. and took up an extensive hobby of overly excessive smoking and drinking and was soon dropped from the Carry On team. My understanding is that Charles Hawtrey wanted a bigger part and wanted more money, and he wasn't granted it, so they dropped him for that. Middle Street. Its narrow cross lanes and streets are filled with a variety of houses, mostly 17th and 18th century, some tiny and simple, others substantially Georgian. Let's get the history. During the Napoleonic Wars, the smugglers were tolerated by the government as they brought useful information back from France. Napoleon gave the English smugglers their own French ports, as they also sold information on England to France. These smugglers were nasty, naughty boys. After the war, the coastal blockade was established in 1816 to end smuggling. So we are actually walking through history here. 17th and 18th century buildings. Some small, some elaborate. I see a blue plaque. Yay! This could be interesting. It might be the first one I've seen. I thought I'd do a tour, but I don't know where all the blue plaques are. But we're going to have a look. Number 117. I thought it was the whole building, but I think it's just this house here. Let's have a look at the blue plaque. Charles Hawtrey, 1914 to 88, which would have been his birth and death year. Film, theatre, radio and television actor, lived here. I want to kind of imitate him, but I'll get mixed up with Kenneth Williams.
Oh, hello.
Let's carry on down here, because I'd like to take us up to the pier, maybe conclude the video there. There's a lot to see in Deal, but I would wholeheartedly recommend it. You have Sandown Castle at the far end, which doesn't exist anymore, and that was actually demolished in the 1800s, I think because of the coastal erosion. You've obviously got Deal Castle and you've got Walmer Castle. Let's cut up through here. Gosh, look at this one. That's really old. I should just go on a hunt for old houses. Maybe they've not put in a petition to have it renovated in the way it originally did. Look. Pirate Treasure House. You can imagine the smugglers using things like this, you know, to get the contraband in. Right, we're coming out to the actual coast. I can feel it blowing. Cross the road. Take your life in your hands. Because I don't think I've ever seen the Goodwin Sands, but I can see some orange buoy things out there, and I would suspect that that is where the Goodwin Sands are. Look at all these, all the facade all the way along the seafront of these old Georgian houses. Maybe that's it. Deal is a Georgian town and never really modernised. It's a pleasant enough place. I've never encountered any issues here. I've come here quite often to do my photography during the day and at night. And they do have Airbnbs and they do have little hotels like this one. So people do come here for breaks and holidays. It's lovely in the summer. Right, I want to go down onto the pier. I think it's lunchtime, don't you? I'll get my lunch so that I can go and sit on the pier. Could you do me a medium cod and a small chips? Well, medium chips, right?
Medium cod, medium chips.
Yeah, that's it. Plenty of salt and vinegar, please. And could you wrap it? Because I'm going to eat it when I get to the bottom of the pier.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's got to be done. I'll eat it at the bottom of the pier, but give me some info on the pier as we're walking down. I have the goods. Let's get to the end of the pier, and we'll conclude the video there with a chip or two. There's some very interesting history about the pier. This one was built in 1957 with a very stark modernist look about it, but there have actually been 3 piers. The first pier was wooden, and that was built in 1838, and that lasted until 1861, where it was destroyed in a storm. They then built another one, and they made that one out of cast iron. Unfortunately, the second pier, that got hit by a boat in World War II. Now, the boat was a Dutch ship, and it struck a mine, drifted under the pier and exploded. So the cast iron pier was no more. They then built this one in 1957, and I think the original one, the wooden one, actually had a tram to take people down so that they'd have the paddle steamers coming up. But this one, built in 57, was actually, and is, a fine attraction. Now, it is the only pier, surviving pier, under civilian ownership in Kent, which means that we have no other piers in Kent that we can freely walk on. You know, a public pier. A public pier is actually owned and maintained by Dover District Council, which makes it the only pier in Britain that is actually owned by a council. So, as you can see here, you get local people coming to do their fishing. I guess if they catch anything, they take it home, right? But look at that scene. Isn't that wonderful, with all the old Georgian buildings, Regency Cinema and the Time Ball Tower. It does look like a seaside town, but it looks like an old seaside town. I love it. I love coming here. Let's go to the end and tuck into the fish and chips. I suppose it's finding somewhere to actually sit and eat. So you've got the Deal Pier kitchen, which is a privately owned restaurant. I've eaten in here. Very nice food. And you can see it's modernised. It looks really lovely. Giving you a nice view out to the channel. Again, with the town in the background. You've got Ramsgate over there. Deal Pier Cafe. Neil McClellan, Architects, 2008. So I think they built this in 2008. Quite funky, actually. It looks kind of Norse, doesn't it? Scandinavian in its outlook. Oh, Pidgeonis. Get yourself a coffee here on the outside. And it's blowy there, so I don't want to sit there. I might just sit down here. I'll just sit here, bask in the sun, eat my fish and chips, and conclude my video. Let me get the chips open and avoid the pigeons. Oh my, that is a generous portion, isn't it? Medium cod, medium chips. So that was Deal. Bit of the castle, bit of the history, Smugglers' Lanes, pier, old architecture, up the high street. Rather nice. Finish it off with some chips. Very tasty. I think I only scratched the surface, to be quite honest. Just walking up the high street and Middle Road, or Middle Street, up the pier. There's probably a lot more to see if you wanted to come here and see it. But I think for me, I'll finish my fish and chips, go home and edit this video, upload it, and get you to hit the like. Now, don't forget, I did do that other video, so link, I'm going to say up there. Go and watch that next. Bye for now.